Hello, I'm Lindsay Crossness, Director of Education for the Orpheum Theater Group, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the first episode of In Their Shoes, where we are talking to alumni of the Orpheum Theater educational programming who are currently working in the performing arts across the country. So today, we are also joined by members of our Student Advisory Board, our STAR Council, and so we are so appreciative of them joining us, and they will be submitting questions for our guest today. Our guest today is Travis Blackwell, stage manager, who is currently working on the And Peggy tour of the Broadway show Hamilton. And Travis, so great to see you. Thank you
It's
for
so good
joining
to
us.
see you. It's a
Hello,
pleasure, really.
hello. Yeah, so let's start with the basics. What is a stage manager and what do they do?
I ask myself that question every day. No, a stage manager is someone who manages the kind of day-to-day logistics of a show, be it scheduling, be it running rehearsals, be it keeping track of what's happening backstage, what's happening on stage. It's a really comprehensive job. And it's someone who gets to be involved with the production, usually from the very beginning, before rehearsal began, all the way through the end of things. So I really like it.
So when did you have an interest in this? When did you realize, you know what, this is what I want to do for a career?
So, like many people, my kind of access point to theater was through performing. So I'm originally from East Tennessee, from Knoxville, and I was, performing in community theater, doing my high school shows. And then one day I had a smaller part in a community theater show, and the assistant stage manager, the ASM, had to kind of drop out. And the director came to me and said, "Hey, would you mind just filling in?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm here already, like may as well try something new." And I loved it. And I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting." So then I kept stage managing during my high school years and still performing. And then ultimately, when I was applying to colleges, I had to check a box on this application that was like stage management or acting. And I was like, "Oh, I think I'm going to do stage management. Maybe I can still act." And then I never looked back. I really fell in love with it in college, I'd say.
So you graduated from the University of Memphis
Yep.
with a BFA in theater and design production. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So you've built quite an impressive resume to be so young. You've worked in musical theater, um, dance, opera, various special events around the country. So talk a little bit about, the strengths that you need, the skills that you need. What did you gain through
Yeah.
college? Yeah.
So the really cool thing about me going to Memphis was that I was able to get the BFA, which is a Bachelor of Fine Arts, which is a pretty concentrated degree. It's a little more focused on theater itself, and it was very hands-on. It was a very like practical education. So I, from the jump, got to actually do stage managing instead of just studying it. And I'm very fortunate to have been able to work in a kind of a diverse um, uh, diverse different kinds of performing arts, um, and that was just because I was interested, and I didn't want to stop working even as a student. So whenever we weren't doing a show at school, I'd be like, "Well, what else can I be doing?" And like the School of Music was doing an opera, and I thought, "Well, I grew up reading music. I can read music. I may as well do an opera. What's that like?" And I really fell in love with doing opera and music performances. And then I stumbled into event management, which is very different than theater because you're dealing with usually more corporate clients as opposed to just like a play-based or performance-based piece. Um, and I found that the best way to navigate the differences and kind of find what I wanted to do was just to be game to try new things. For me, I didn't want to stop, and so it was a necessity to try new things. And in doing so, by putting myself out of my comfort zone, I really fell in love with these other mediums. Um, and I had to learn how to change my approach to things, which in the early days was like, oh, well, now I'm doing a dance piece, and hip hop dancers are very different than opera singers, and they need different things and different management styles. And so originally it was out of necessity that I was kind of like adjusting the way I was working, and then I started finding my own kind of universal style out of that, and I got to really hone the kind of manager I wanted to be. And now I feel like I can pretty much apply my like philosophy of management to almost any kind of piece. But because I was able to really move between art forms, that was really helpful, me kind of honing in on what I believed was important for a manager.
Do you have a favorite area?
I mean, it's tough because they really are very different. You know, if you're doing like, I got to do like the NCAA Final Four one time, like all the events surrounding the Final Four, and that was, I mean, just like I was doing like a battle of the bands, all these marching bands, and all these like iconic schools, and that's really exciting. Event work's really exciting. I love big Broadway musicals; they're really exciting. Um, and I love opera, and I love the emotional impact like classical music can have. I cry almost every time I hear classical music. Um, but if I have to choose, I'd probably say musical theater in general, just because I grew up being such a big fan of musicals. I mean, I would drive from Knoxville to Memphis just to see shows at the Orpheum, just because I wanted to be exposed. And so it's pretty incredible now to get to be a small part of a show that people like travel a long way to see. Um, and it's just like there's nothing better than, you know, doing the show 8 times a week, as they always say, and doing, um, especially this it's a really good show, and it's really easy to do every day. So if I had to pick one, it'd be musical theater, but I really love doing other things too.
So we're going to throw it to Star Council for
Yeah.
a minute to answer some of their questions. Randy, would you like to start?
Yes. First off, hi, my name is Randy.
Hi, Randy.
Thank you for talking to us today.
Of course, yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you got a BFA at U of M with theater design. That's exactly what I'm doing next year.
No way.
And
Cool.
you touched on what you did. You talked about a little bit of opera, but can you talk about the process of earning a BFA in theater design at Memphis?
Yeah, totally. So I kind of lucked out when wasn't really I didn't really know what I was doing when I started applying to colleges. I was like, oh well, I want a BFA and I should probably stay in state, and I really lucked out because U of M does so many shows a year. You know, they have like a main season they have a couple different venues, and then they also produce a lot of student work. So my advice to someone who's going into design and production at a college level is to say yes to everything you can. You know, make sure that you're doing your homework, and you know, if you have to have a job, you have a job. But if you can juggle it, do every show that pops up and do things that you wouldn't normally do. I designed makeup one time for a U of M show. I would work on wardrobe crew. I'm a terrible sewer, but I'm really great with buttons and labels. So I would sew buttons. But because I got so much experience in school, all of a sudden I kind of knew about other disciplines, about, you know, being an actor, about what it takes to hang a light, what that's like. And B, I got to really like see how it felt and what I liked and what I didn't like. I found that I didn't love, you know, set construction and technical direction, and I didn't love like all the math involved in that, but I did love, um, you know, the lighting design aspect and working with that kind of thing. And honestly, going into school, I wasn't really interested in trying out new things. So I would say do as much as you can at school. Do things that you don't think you'll like. Go outside your comfort zone, because you'll probably find those things are a lot more exciting than you think they are. But I'm really happy you're going to school there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Also,
Yeah.
for actors to get a job, they need to like audition and stuff. like, how do you like apply for jobs, and how do you present your skills and your like portfolio things to directors to get to like you're
That's real.
in San Francisco, I saw. So like,
Hmm.
how does that process work?
Yeah, so it's interesting because on one hand, I used to almost wish that I could just audition to be a stage manager, because I felt like it was hard to break in. But on the other hand, it's really incredible that our job seeking process in many ways can be a very personal one, where it's largely networking based. Um, and I think I really love that. I love building relationships with people. So for me, I can like tell you all the reasons why you should hire me, and I can, I can do that. But it's hard to get your foot in the door, and at first you just have to cast a wide net. And I remember I would just apply. There's like websites that have job listings for summer internships, and I would just apply to like 40 of them, and they were random. They were all over the country. My first summer in school, I ended up working for this small professional theater company in Vermont called Lost Nation Theater. They're in Montpelier, and it was definitely like a all hands on deck. Like, everyone does all the things. And I had never heard of Montpelier, Vermont. I'd never even thought about going to Vermont. But I had an interview with them, and I got to chat with them and talk about the job. And it turns out, and I loved it. And I found out about another theater in Vermont. It ended up that place. I went there the next summer, and then eventually they hired me back as a full-time professional. And I got my equity card, which is the union for actors and stage managers. And it was boom, boom, boom. And that led to one thing. And ultimately, if I hadn't gone to Vermont, I probably wouldn't be on Hamilton because of the chain reaction. So it can be really tough to break in. And something that someone told me once upon a time was to, whenever you're overwhelmed by like, I don't have enough experience, my resume is not good enough. If you will just embrace where you are and the level of experience you have, and don't try to overblow it. If you embrace where you are, and you reach and try to expand your horizons, it'll work out. And the industry's small. If you're nice to people, they'll hire you.
Thank you.
Is that helpful? Yeah, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah, thank you so much.
Take it.
Next question, Vera. Yes, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Vera. Thanks for talking to us. I just want to know, is there anything that you get from stage managing that you didn't get from musical theater, or vice versa, whether it be like personal or connections wise?
Do you mean like things that I personally like get out of stage management as opposed to performing? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So part of what really turned me on to stage management was that I was able to go to all like the cool meetings, and I was, at first, like, oh wow, I have all this information. And then I realized that I got to be involved with the show from even before it was cast half the time, and interact with the design team and the team and the production team and the cast. I love working with actors. But I found stage management let me have a little more broad an experience. I was interacting with people front of house, with ushers, every day. I go out to the lobby. I was interacting with people I normally would never probably even see or ever talk to. And then another part of it was I, as a stage manager, I'm not limited as much by type. How most actors, they think that they have like a specific type of role they can play.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are really great to play Elphaba, and many people wouldn't be great as Elphaba. I would be a terrible Elphaba. But I, as a stage manager, get to do any kind of project, within my skill set, obviously. But like, I can do a hip hop dance piece that I could never perform in, but I can be a part of. I can do Hamilton. I probably couldn't sing any of the songs in Hamilton, but I can be a part of it. So I found that being in the production side of things, it actually opened up the types of work I can do. I got to be involved in more kinds of projects.
Oh, thank you. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Good question. Thanks, Vera. So I have a question for you, Travis.
Yeah.
Can you speak to a little bit about what kind of support you had when you decided this is what I'm going to do for a career?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it's family or friends or whoever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am very fortunate. I am very was very self-motivated, and it was very clear to everyone around me that I was really driven, and my family was extremely supportive all along. Even before it was a career option for me, they were really willing to drive me to rehearsal, or drive me to Memphis to see shows. And I was really fortunate that from right from the get-go in high school, in community theater, I had a lot of mentorship, like really invested mentors. The guy who ran the community theater where I did shows growing up, his name is Reggie Law. He was for a long time an equity stage manager, actually. So he kind of showed me the ropes, and my family was super supportive of me spending a lot of time over there learning how to do shows. In college, a lot of my professors were really instrumental, and ultimately, I took part in this networking stage management hands-on program at a conference called USITT, and that's where I met Kim Fisk, who's one of my biggest mentors now. She's actually my current boss on Hamilton. She gave me this job, and so I've been very fortunate to have a lot of support. Now, part of that is because I was so clear that it was what I needed to do and wanted to do, and I was willing to put in a lot of personal investment, time and money and all that. But I was really fortunate, and not everyone has that kind of support, especially in performing arts. It's really scary. You look around right now, I'm out of a job right now because all the big events are shut down, and yes, this is a very extreme example of that, but lots of people have a hard time finding work, and that can worry a lot of families. It can worry a lot of parents, especially. So you also have to be realistic, and you have to make sure that you have a great self-support system. You have to make sure that you've saved enough money where if you don't have a job for 4 months, you're going to be okay. Or you have to, have a security job. When I moved to New York City right after college, I was freelancing for very little money, and I would pick up these jobs, and I would go and I would babysit recording studios for symphonies, and it's all really cool. But I was doing it to have some money to pay the rent. And so it's definitely important to acknowledge, like, if someone doesn't seem to be supportive of your endeavors, you have to make sure you acknowledge and see where they're coming from. And if there is some truth in that, recognize it, but also make a plan on how you're gonna navigate it. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Great, yeah, very helpful.
Good.
Any other questions from our Star Council friends? Ava Joy, yes. Unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Ava Joy.
Hi.
Thank you for talking to us.
Of course.
I'm also going to the U of M this fall for musical theater. Yes, I'm excited. And I know that they have a lot of student directing options and stuff like that to do the production aspect of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it's important for somebody who's trying to pursue an acting career to also kind of see what's going on with the backstage stuff too? Because I've stage managed before and I like both of it, but I just think that it's probably important for everybody to do both, and I wanted to see what you thought about that.
Absolutely. I think it is really helpful, and not even just performers, trying out some technical jobs. I think it's important, if you go to school to be a lighting designer, I think you should audition for something or take an acting class. I think it's important that we all, especially in the college level, get as much experience doing really diverse things, because if you haven't ever stage manage a show, you don't know what that feels like, and you don't know how that would be for the person you're working with. If I had never acted before, I wouldn't be a very good stage manager because I wouldn't have a good understanding of what performers needed. So I think when you're in a safe environment that has tons of opportunity, like a college setting or even a high school setting, I really would recommend trying out something new. If you're a performer, try, make sure you go to the light hang day, make sure you learn how to hang a light, make sure you work in the costume shop. Memphis, and most school programs require you to do a little bit of that. But I would really recommend going the extra mile as much as you can. It's awesome you want to do both, and you can do both for now, but absolutely, by all means, do both. Direct show, stage manage, perform, don't limit yourself. And then you'll find, when you do that, you'll find what really makes you happy and what pays the bills.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Travis, you mentioned you were in San Francisco with Hamilton, and I might add at the Orpheum Theater in San Francisco.
At the Orpheum, that was not lost on me.
So, but you were in a sit down, what they call a sit down. So what does that mean?
Yeah. So our San Francisco run was the second stop on on the NPEGI tour. So we opened in Puerto Rico. We rehearsed the show in New York City for 6 weeks. Then we opened the show in Puerto Rico, and we ran there for a few weeks as a special fundraising engagement. And then we moved the show from Puerto Rico to San Francisco. And then we were there for just over a year. And what that meant is we were essentially operating like a Broadway show would. You know, everyone found a place to live. Many people signed leases. You know, I found an apartment. And it was definitely a more like rooted existence than most touring experience would be. And we operated like a Broadway show. We were just in California. And it was really great because we had, you know, most people don't know this, but touring productions only carry with them a few crew members. You know, it's just like a few people from each field or each department on the, just like a couple wardrobe people, a couple props people. And then in every city they go to, they pick up locals. So like when a show comes to Orpheum in Memphis, they might have 6 to 10 of their own crew, but they'll pick up, you know, between 5 and 30 sometimes local Memphians. And you teach them the show during the first few performances. And the cool thing about doing a sit down is we got to work with the same crew every day, week in and week out. And the lines start to blur in a really beautiful way as far as like who works for the show and who works as a local. And it made my job as a stage manager really easy because people knew the show like the back of their hand. And so that's something I think I'll miss once we start touring, was going to work and seeing the same people every day and knowing that they knew exactly what was going on. But I am looking forward to the built-in excitement of every time we go to a new city, teaching the show to new people. I think it'll probably have make some of the quick changes be a little more stressful when it's new people, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. But I'll really miss the crew in San Francisco whenever we leave.
Yeah. Any other questions from Star Council before we wrap up? Well, yes, Josiah.
Hi, thank you for talking to us so much.
Of course.
What has been one of your favorite memories that you have carried through your stage managing?
Oh, man. Oh, okay. I have a lot of really good ones, and that's a good sign. That means I'm doing the right thing. I'll say, though, that so I was a real big, like, Broadway fan. Like, I was all about that life. And when I was at U of M, I was offered an internship at a musical Wicked in New York. And the first time that I got to go into the theater and watch the stage manager call the show, which means like all the light cues, sound cues, all the automated scenery. And that was a show that really got me into theater. Like that was my first like musical that I loved. And getting to watch them call the show and getting to know all the people there, like beyond like, oh, they play this, they play that. Like, oh, those stage managers at Wicked were some of my earliest like real supporters and mentors. And getting to see them do that show 8 times a week was really incredible and is a very special experience. But also, I was very fortunate in that I got my first time like calling a big show at a big theater was in Memphis at the Orpheum, and it was really incredible. Like, I remember the first time I got to walk out of the stage door. It sounds so superficial now, but I was so excited to be able to like work in that theater and walk out the stage door, you know, like all these people I'd seen before. And that's something I never take for granted, I hope, is that I am able to do that every day. But yeah, I have a lot of good memories.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
So we're going to wrap up with a few questions.
Okay.
A la James Lipton style.
Okay.
From Inside the Actor Studio. If you all don't know that show, he always ended his shows with a few questions for the guests. So what food or beverage must you have to work successfully?
Coffee, iced coffee. A lot of it.
Strangest item in your stage management kit?
Oh, man. Oh, a rubber chicken.
I don't want to know.
No, you don't.
Favorite memory of the Orpheum Theater, Memphis?
High School Musical Theater Awards, watching the opening number kids live their dreams.
Oh, I love that. All right, finally. So this series is called In Their Shoes. You got to show us your shoes.
Okay. Okay, so I actually love these shoes, so I'm happy this is happening. These are my shoes. Oh,
Great.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you for doing that.
Of course.
So we're going to wrap up, but I can't say thank you enough. It's great to see your face. We miss
It's so
you.
good to see you.
And hopefully, who knows, maybe your tour will come through Memphis.
That's a bucket list item for me, is to tour the Orpheum Theater in Memphis, Tennessee. So I hope so too.
Would make us very happy. Very happy.
It's so nice to meet you all.
Yeah. Thanks, Star Council, for being here today. And tune in next week when our guest will be Ashley Waronsky McCormack, who is currently in New York but just came off the tour of Finding Neverland. Tune in next week. Thanks, everybody.